Okay, testing, testing. All right, there we go. Excellent. Seems like everything is working. Knocking on wood. All right. Let's see who's all here. Okay, so I see possibly a few people are already here. For those that don't know me, my name is Whitney Buckman. I am with Buckman Bestial Behaviors and just came in from a long day of training. It's been a very hectic week at Buckman Bestial Behaviors. You can tell everyone's back from vacation as we schedule more and more training sessions, right, big guy? Yes. Oh, we know you're excited. So I do this every fourth Wednesday. If people have questions, um, feel free to send them my way, put them in the text chat, and I will be happy to answer them to the best of my ability. It can be about training, it can be about any animal behavior, and it can also be about any animal, period, since I did work in the zoo field for a number of years. So maybe you just got a weird random animal question. I will be happy to answer them. Some of you might have noticed a few weeks ago, I put in some requests, and I got a lot of feedback from people who had questions. But those were for upcoming videos that I'd like to make. I also try to put out 2 to 4 videos a month about basic general questions that I get regarding training, or maybe I came across something while I was with a client and I was like, you know what, that'd be a great topic to share with people when discussing all of these things. So if you have a question, go ahead, put it in the chat, and I will be happy to answer. Hello, DJ. Hello, Desiree, Lynn, Courtney, and Grant. So far is what I see. Of course, I know Grant and I know DJ. No, actually, I think everybody here. Yeah. But if anybody has any questions, just let me know. Recently, I actually have been asked to go do a talk for some teachers that I'm actually kind of excited about coming up here in February regarding, hello, friend, regarding uh, therapy dogs. And basically, we'll be talking with a number of teachers uh, about the rules and policies and the different options they have. Because there's a number of different organizations that do it and a number of different ways that they can incorporate it into their classrooms. And then, of course, the examples that we'll be bringing will be some of the ones that I have in our current uh, school systems, and then I'll also discuss how I do things compared to everyone else. So, all right. If anybody has any questions, and also if you ever notice any noise issues or anything like that, just let me know. Looks like Lynn popped back in. Hello, Lynn. Just let me know if there's any technical gremlins that I can't hear on my end. But as usual, just pop your questions into the chat and I will be happy to answer those. We are actually coming around our We're about to start our third year since I decided to do this full time and switch from the zoo field and go into training our local domestic animals to help communication with uh, our the furry family members that we have with the more two-legged variety. I actually got excited this past week. Oh, Grant's thinking about a second dog. I'm going to get to that here in a second. I actually got excited this past week. One of the reasons I put the word bestial in the name is because I don't just train dogs. I also train other animals. I've had cat clients, and now I have a parrot client that we're working with to get some behavior. So what should you consider if you're thinking about getting a second dog? Um, I'm a bad example. I have very bad willpower, but I always say the more the merrier. But things you need to obviously think about first and foremost that most people don't want to think about when they think of these situations is financial. Can you afford doubling up your food and vet bills with the second dog? So that's the one. And then there's never such a thing as a free dog. So there's always that. A lot of people will be like, oh, here's this puppy. But puppies obviously need a lot of upfront vaccinations and a little bit more standard vet care right at the get-go. Um, Second, do you have the time and is it appropriate? When I had Namara, she's my eldest one. She's upstairs. I think they're all waiting for mom. Mom went off to go get something from the store, and she'll be back here shortly. But they're all upstairs. But Namara, she uh, was very much attached to me right off the get go. And one thought that I had was, would a second dog be appropriate for her with her personality type? And I was going back and forth quite a bit regarding if a second dog would take away from my attention to her and then thereby degrade her enjoyment in the home situation, or if the second dog would become a secondary companion. So it really just depends on how that dog reacts. Now, obviously, also you want to know how that dog reacts to other dogs. So if you go to a dog park and things of that nature, that can give you an idea of how that dog will behave with a puppy. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they will behave that way with the incoming puppy, because the incoming puppy won't go away. There's oftentimes where the dog is great at first, and then like, okay, I'm now done with the puppy. Take it away now. It lives here. So that could still be a potential issue. In general, as long as you have a dog that is friendly with other dogs and you can afford it, those are the main things. Just know that you will be doubling up whatever situation you have. I myself have had a 2-year curse. Almost every 2 to 3 years, we end up with another puppy. It's like we get puppy fever or something. So I'm a bad example as far as willpower and saying no to these types of things. But definitely the main thing really is that financial burden. Can you afford one more entity to take care of? And also, what is going on with your other dog? So honestly, if you have an older dog, that's when you really have a problem. I know how old Grant's pup is, who asked the question, and so for him, I'd say that it's pretty appropriate. He's got basically an adult dog, not elderly, just an adult. Would a second puppy be great? Yes, and usually the second puppy is actually easier because they will learn from the elder pup. So if you have the older dog doing all the things that you want, then the little puppy will be doing that as well. Now, if your older dog is not trained and not well behaved, then the new puppy will learn those behaviors from the older dog. So that's another thing to consider. Do you want to train the older dog first when it's easier to just work on one and then bring the second one in? It really just depends. There's so many variables with each individual home situation. I'm trying to think of other factors. So you got If you have an elderly dog, though, I usually tell people no, don't get the puppy now, because usually that will degrade the quality of life for the older dog. The older dog has a harder time getting away from the younger puppy. They have arthritic joints. Their tolerance for puppies is way smaller. So sometimes I say if you have an elderly dog that is going through elderly issues, then I would say just wait it out. Don't get a puppy at that point in time. Um, those are really the main factors. What dogs do you have? What animals and dogs do you have in the house? If you have cats, you can go adopt. And now I'm going to get some flack for this. If you have cats or things, I actually prefer getting puppies in the household, just because then you know the learning history they have, and you can find out how they will grow up with smaller animals like cats and things like that in the home. Um, if you do adopt a dog that is older, then I definitely suggest, if you have other pets like cats, bunnies, birds, that you test them to see how that dog reacts to those things. If they get overexcited, then maybe they aren't the best fit. But those are probably the main considerations. What do you have in the house already? And can you financially afford it? And is it an appropriate fit? Probably will not be getting too many more animals at our house right now, because we have two dogs that are great, and they were fantastic. We could add any dog in the house and they'd adapt. But now we have a couple that are not emotionally sound for that situation. Can it be done? Yes. But then the question is, would we at my home want to go through that stress for ourselves just to add one more animal to the mix? So those are probably the main things I'd ask about getting a second dog. I'm guessing Grant is thinking about a second puppy. I think it's serious. Yeah. Anybody else have any questions? If you have any questions, just pop them in the chat and I'll be happy to answer. Yeah. As I said, we are getting on to our third year here with. Oh, you have been fed, kitty. Come on up. Yes. Okay. We are getting to our third year going full time. I've been training in the Garden City area since 2010 through vet clinics and the Garden City Recreation Commission and a few other organizations. But I decided to go full time and be my own boss in this scenario about 2 years ago coming up. Hey, buddy. No, you don't get steak. All right. The cat seat, just in case some questions came up and it was appropriate to show and demonstrate those behaviors. I do have some what we call reinforcers in the biz. These are in the form of food treats, but a reinforcer, the animal decides what it is. And right now, Rakshasa is deciding that the fat is smelling delicious. Hi, bud. How about this? You can have that one, but you can't have too much. Your kidneys don't do well when you don't have unusual foods. So the methodology I utilize is basically there's a lot of different labels in the animal training world. I'd say that mine, the best fits me, is the science based. I love to read papers and see and learn from people that are researching what is actually effective. I try not to utilize anecdotal methods as much anymore. I was taught more traditionally, but now I utilize much more science based. So it's operant conditioning, and if anybody has taken psychology in high school or college, you might have heard that word before. Basically, we have four ways of learning. You got positive reinforcement, positive punishment, negative reinforcement, and negative punishment. People have heard of positive reinforcement a lot, but they usually are using the term a little wrong, because positive doesn't mean good or happy. It actually just means adding something, such as adding a reward or a treat to get an animal to do something more. So reinforcement means your increase of behavior, punishment means your decrease. Um, Now, there are side effects to using positive punishment and negative reinforcement. Negative reinforcement, you have something that you're taking away. Usually, it's discomfort, and then the discomfort goes away as soon as as soon as they do the thing that you want, and so you're hoping to increase that behavior. The punishment side of things, obviously, to reduce. So usually, positive punishment means you're adding something, and in that case, oftentimes it's either pain or something loud noise to scare them or something along those lines. I generally stay away from those two methodologies because, well, one term I use that some other trainers liked, enjoyed, was I said it is it's a crutch with side effects. So a lot of studies have shown that you can increase aggression and various other things with those um, methodologies. So I generally steer away from those as much as possible, but still acknowledge that those are methods to learn. They just have those side effects, especially if you're not a trained individual uh, on the correct timing to issue those. You really want that, more of that steak, huh? You're getting agitated because I won't let you have it. Um, those methods. So uh, that's generally what I do. Is I come in, I teach people how to do the correct timing, utilizing uh, positive reinforcement, maybe some negative punishment. Negative punishment means I take something away to reduce a behavior. Sometimes it's as simple as the treats are in front of you and you didn't do the thing, or you did something I didn't want you to do, so the treats go farther away or go away, and the animal really quickly picks up and says, "Oh, I didn't like that, so I'm not going to do that." Hi, Rocks. What's up, buddy? All right. Seems to be a quiet evening tonight so far, but sometimes these things pick up around 20 minutes in or so, 20 to 30 minutes in. But if anybody has any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat. Um, I have a number of people requesting training services and various things and the like. Actually, this past few days have been very, very booked. I've been doing about 12-hour days of training, either traveling to places. I actually travel up to about 150 miles radius of Garden City, Kansas, to assist families with their needs. Hello, Rakshasa. There we go. Are you calm for a second? No, you can't touch buttons. Maybe I should go get the nail trimmer and trim your nails on camera, huh? All right. Does anybody have any questions? Just put them in the chat, and I'd be happy to answer. Otherwise, I will just pet this cat like a. I'll just pet this cat like a. Oh, just forgot his name. James Bond villain. There we go. Hello, Mr. Bond. Okay, seems to be a fairly quiet evening right now. I've got a number of clients that I'm working with. I had one that was a super exciting moment. It was actually just basic obedience, but probably the most rewarding aspect was just the fact that I was able to fix some of the communication between the family and the dog. And that doggo, oh, I see a question from Lynn. I'll get to that here in just about a second. That doggo actually was about to, was just putting everybody at their wits' end. And just with a little bit of training, I think 3 sessions in, actually 1 or 2 sessions in, they were saying that there was a world of difference because they now had methods like target training, which is when an animal moves or touches something uh, to a cue. In the case that I use, it's usually the dog's nose booping the human's hand. So that way they can move them around and they can communicate where I want you. And also just giving. It was hilarious because I was working with the pup, and after one session of practicing give, which really it's just a trade, you just give them a treat and they give you the thing that's in their mouth. And they, that dog, after the training, we were in a shed. We left the shed. We're walking across the farm, and then the dog started grabbing all sorts of toys that it had hidden in the field and bringing them over and over to get some more trades. Like, hey, here's this rug that's mine. Hi, here's this toy. Here's this ball. Here's this random stick I found. Can I get another one? All right, my pup is 5 months old, Lab Pyrenees. Sometimes while he is resting, he will cry kind of lonely, then lay his head down, looking sad. Is there something I should do to help him? Not necessarily. Okay, so with the methodology that I use, I take a lot from animal behavior analysis and the philosophies and the ideas of that. So one thing with animals, oh, the heater's going on. I hope that's not too loud for everybody. Let me know in the chat if it's getting too noisy uh, down here. So, where was I saying? Oh, so with animal behavior analysis, one thing we try to do is we use the most basic part of psychology, which is mind theory, which is simply you can't read other entities' minds. We can't read each other's minds, and honestly, we can't read a dog's mind. Now he whines, he looks sad, but is that the emotion that he's actually feeling? We don't know. Does he have emotions? Yes, but we're really bad at telling how other humans are feeling, let alone how that dog is feeling, if that makes sense. So if he, sometimes while he's resting, he will kind of cry lonely and then lay his head down looking sad. I honestly would actually leave that alone, because what's going to happen is if you start intervening is when you go to intervene with the pup, when he starts whining, that will be what we call reinforcing. So that'll increase the behavior of whining because now he's accomplished a task. Hey, Judy. So he's accomplished a task of getting you to do something. So sometimes the dogs are training us just as much. And if the problem with a pup, they're just kind of making noises. Maybe he is sad. Maybe he is lonely. More than likely, he's just bored, is all it is. But we can't really tell. So what I do is I try to look at that behavior. Now, the thing that I look at that behavior, that whining, is that if you go to interact with the dog when it starts whining, that dog is going to learn to whine, because that will increase the behavior, because whining got your attention to it. And especially if Lab Pyrenees in general, they tend to, well, yeah, I love both those breeds. So, but it's hard to say what genetic features are going to be the most prominent in obviously any mixed breed. But in general, going to him when he whines will usually just be a reinforcer, i.e. increase the behavior of that dog whining. So I would generally just let them be. If the dog wants your attention, let it come to you. Have a much more clear communication that it wants your attention rather than just kind of a look or a whine. It will figure it out. It will learn how to communicate better and better over time. It's a young pup, so that's just all it is. More than likely, he's just bored, but it's really hard to say what's actually going on in their head. We can kind of guess, but as I said, I go big into mind theory, which means I try not to predict what's actually going on inside the head, because we can't see that, but I can see the behaviors outside the body, and then I just work on methods to change those behaviors. But I am afraid that if you go to interact with the pup, from while it's crying, you will increase that behavior of crying, and all you'll do is the pup will start crying more and more and more. Um, Usually, I like to do this mind theory because keep mind theory in mind, but mind theory in mind, because I'm just trying to make sure that the that we don't put on blinders, because like if you say he's sad and he's not sad, like I mentioned, he could possibly be bored as well. Then sometimes we put on blinders when we think, oh, he's sad, and then we already have our assumptions, we already have our things in plan, and we might actually miss what's actually causing the behavior. Um, I'd like to know more about the moments that are leading up to him crying, like you say. In animal behavior analysis, we try to strip away what we call labels. Labels are things like saying he's lonely, he's sad, as much as possible, just to help clear our eyes and make sure that we're seeing the big picture of what the animal is doing. One anecdote I like to say about the mind theory thing is the office goes to hell when people ignore mind theory, because so and so put the stapler over there because they know I hate the stapler over there. No, they probably just put it over there mindlessly. There was no ill intent, but because you've ignored mind theory, you forget that you don't actually read their mind, and we start projecting things onto them. And puppies are definitely made to get our attention. Those big eyes, everything about them is definitely made to get our pity. We are designed to like those baby features that they have, and give in. So sometimes I say willpower in those situations. Let me know if you have any other questions um, regarding that. And also, Lynn, if there's anything else you can think of what he's doing right before that little crying behavior, that'd be happy to. I'd be interested in hearing. Usually in the evenings after my older dog has settled down. Oh yeah, most okay. That adds to my theory that he's just actually bored, because now people are all the things are stopping interacting with him a little bit more. So he's just and hoping something will come over and stop his boredom. But there's a lot of dogs I find that they're like, oh, they just whine. They always whine. And I go and I'll walk into the home, and I will see what we call antecedents, the things that lead up to the behavior. And I will see everybody making these assumptions. I'm like, oh, that dog is doing that on purpose. And he's doing that on purpose because he learned that the human does X when he does that, so that he gets Y. All right. If you have any other questions, go ahead and pop them into the chat. I'd be happy to answer. I have to laugh about Grantiga's, or Grantiga, I used his gamer tag. I have to laugh about Grant's question about having getting a second dog. I think he is like the third or fourth person in the past like 7 to 10 days to ask me about the second dog, and I'm really suspicious that people are just looking for me to give them that the okay to do the thing that they want to do anyway. LOL, indeed. All right. Any other questions? Hope that didn't make too much noise when I was playing with the microphone. Lately, I've been geeking out a lot to a lot of behavior uh, broadcasts and forums right now. So my brain is very high end on the behaviorism psychology bandwagon. So if I say anything that is just, you're like, what does that even mean? Go ahead, tell me to dumb it down, because sometimes the problem of talking with other people constantly that are in the know is that you lose that little touch of talking with people who are not experts or not uh, as well versed in some of these. So I try to explain any words that I use. But next question. My next question is about pups learning. My boxer Cross is very quick to pick up on my every wish. He seems to know exactly what I want. Colt, my pup, seems oblivious to my direction. Oh, hey, Erica. Seems oblivious to my direction. Is this about the different breeds? Okay. I'm going to go back into my whole animal behavior analysis kind of philosophy thing. So, one other factor of that is I always ask people's breeds, but I actually don't think about the breeds or care too much about the breeds until I actually meet the dog. Do the breeds matter? Yes, because genetics is a thing, and it does have part of the equation to the behavior. But every person and every animal is an individual. So another part of the philosophy is train the animal, because also I work with other animals, not just dogs. So train the animal or the breed, and if we're talking about dogs, that's in front of you, not the breed. Because if I try to train, okay, well, most labs, for example, or boxers fall in this bell curve, and a bunch of them are here. Well, the problem is there's going to be some on the outside of that bell curve that don't fit that paradigm, that don't fit in that what you'd call the lab drive. I was actually just talking with a client about this tonight, because they have a lab that's super duper obsessed with toys and balls and everything like that. Grant left us. He's going to play a game. Ask me how I know. Anyway, so you have that bell curve, but not everybody falls in the normal. There's always going to be outliers. There's always going to be some that are acting a little different. So the reason that individual dog is not listening to you, I'd rather look to see why that dog is oblivious to your direction. For me, what I would analyze more is what the animal finds reinforcing. What does Colt find reinforcing that maybe your boxer cross does not? Maybe Colt is less interested in human interaction, in which case your attention, your basically your happiness is less of an equation about as far as that dog deciding if it is a reinforcer for him. In other words, basically, he might find food or toys more reinforcing. I called you out. Grant. Okay. So, but back to Lynn's question. He might be finding, or your dog Colt might be finding different things reinforcing than the boxer. The boxer might be obsessed with your attention, as I said, whereas Colt, he's a lab and a Pyrenees, the lab would also suggest he should be obsessed with your attention, but he also might be more obsessed with things, toys, stuff to do, or food, things of that nature. So you might be just trying to use the wrong reinforcers for Colt, because he's a different individual with different desires. One thing I like to say is, like, you also, even if you use the same treats on different dogs, doesn't mean they're going to be reinforcing on equal levels. So reinforcers, the things that make the animals do the things we want, there's some that are high value, some that are low value. And what one dog's high value is might not be the other one's. Some dogs could care less about the ball. The dog I was working with tonight, you could get that dog to do anything if you just throw the ball. But that's different tastes, and different individuals have different drives. So if you're trying to train Colt the same way as your other dog, or sorry, yeah, Colt the same way as your other dog, you probably are going to fail because you have not analyzed what is truly reinforcing to Colt himself. One other thing I like to say, like with the different flavors, different tastes. I mean, a lot of people like pizza, but half the population, if I give them a pineapple pizza, they're not going to find that reinforcing. They're going to find that disgusting. I myself is one of them. Yep, I'm a no pineapple person, but but other people might find that pineapple pizza. My wife, for example, is the pineapple reinforcing type. Rewarding. So the dogs are the same way. They all find different things. So the thing is, you got to look close to find out, what does that puppy want? And usually what we want are the high reinforcers, because those are the things they're going to be willing to work for. Oftentimes, a lot of people have those dogs that I just want you to be happy, and all of your attention is exactly what I want, and that's all I need in life. But then you have the next dog that's like, nah, I only work for food. I barely could care less if the human's in the room or not. So it just really just depends. Sometimes also you find that the second puppy is less attached to the humans than the first puppy is. That is just because now they grew up with a dog who is more like them to be with. So that could also be a factor. There's a lot of different little factors why one's listening. I will say, with all these factors, usually when the pup is the people go from the easy pup and then they get the next pup, and that's usually when I get hired. Is that second harder pup, and they're like, I don't understand it. This is the one that's not making as much sense. But my guess is you need to do some more experimenting to figure out what is actually the pup willing to work with. And also, you have to sometimes change direction and how you do things. I usually honestly have I have been doing this for years and decades. Never mind that piece of information. But I've over the time have accumulated a wide variety of methodologies, and I've seen different ones work with different dogs. And sometimes I will switch gears on the fly because I'm like, this dog I can instantly see is not being reinforced to the level, at least, that I want to do something, and I need to change drives. Tonight, I was doing a bed behavior with two different dogs. Had to do it two completely different ways. One, I was tossing treats behind him as we knocked and opened the door to get him to reinforce the other way. The other one, we taught the behavior of the bed first, and just we're working on the bed and stay. But they were coming from two different learning histories, and they were two completely different breeds and completely different ages. So I couldn't work with those two dogs the exact same way because they just learn differently. So really there's no one answer I wish I could give you why the new pup isn't listening as easily, but 9 times out of 10, I'd say, and now I'm using a generalization, but vast majority of the time all it takes is finding that one piece of reinforcement, and then you got the dog's attention, and now they're willing to work for it. They're like, oh, that's the thing I want. That's the thing I want. Yes, there's a number of different things you can do. Sometimes there's like little experiments you can do where you put 2 treats out in front of, if you want to use food, and maybe food is the answer for him. I'm not sure. Sometimes it's the ball. Some dogs are just obsessed and will do anything as long as you give them and throw a ball. Some, it is human attention. As long as you love them, they will do whatever. But if it's the food one, you might want to do some experiments where you put, and actually you could do this with toys too. You put 2 out, and then they go towards one or the other. All right. Then you put two out, but you switch which one's on the left and which one's on the right to make sure that there's not a left-right decider. And if the dog keeps consistently picking one over the other, then you know that is a higher reinforcer. And then you can do this with a number of treats. It's kind of like I like to equate it to the eye doctor: A or B, B or C, 3 or 4. Until you figure out, okay, this is what the dog wants. Now, sometimes the dog just lets you know, and they just get that crazy eyes, the eyes just wide, and that thing's out, and then they go crazy. I was going to see, I got some good treats here, but dogs are all hanging out upstairs. Otherwise, I could show you those crazy eyes pretty easily with a few of them. All right. Any other questions? Well, this might work. Curious. Nope, I didn't hear it. Could be outside, too. Raywind? Xanadu? Yeah. My guess is my wife's actually feeding them, so probably don't want to call them down here. All right. Does anybody have any other questions? If you have any questions, just put them in the chat, and I'd be happy to answer any of them. One thing I'm excited to enlist here soon is, or do something soon. I have a lot of videos that everybody's given me from a post that I asked for if anybody wanted me to do a video on specific things. I got a plethora to put out. And there also, I'm going to do a case study with one dog that I've been working one-on-one with that I'm kind of excited to put out. Mostly it was potty training. I think it was 2.5 years old. So he'd been going in the house, and that's just how it is. And in under 2 or 3 weeks, we got him down to almost nothing. And now he's basically potty trained outside. One of my clients, Tammy. Hi, Tammy. And Otis heard the click and now is waiting for his treats. That is when I go over my videos and I'm editing them and I click in the video, my dogs go crazy. It causes issues. All right. All right. Erica, working on. Yes, preference assessments online. Yeah. That's basic. What Grant is saying. Grant is also a behaviorist, but he works with people. And actually, I think he's almost there. Are you? You're really close to the doctorate. So close, so close. But anyway, so he's talking about preference assessments. Preference assessments. There are ways to look at that online to do the test more systematically. At the most simple, it's A, B, then you switch them. Then sometimes you switch them a few different directions just to make sure that, because sometimes a dog will just prefer things that are on the right side over the left, and they always pick the right one. So you might find those types of things until they find the thing that makes them crazy. Back to Erica, working on keeping the kitten off the kitchen table. Does pretty well when we are home, but need to discourage while at work. I was just talking about this the other day. That is impossible because basically you're not there. It's the same reason why a dog that's outside constantly will exhibit bad behaviors, because you're not there to tell them and guide them in the right way. And most likely, most people are yelling and shooing the cat off, basically adding a positive punisher situation, i.e. they're adding something, scary noises, yelling, spray bottle, something. But one part of that antecedent, this should all be quiet, should not be saying anything. Okay. One thing about that antecedent is, antecedents being all the things that lead to the behavior, is you are there as part of the antecedent. And when you're not there, that behavior has the stuff leading to that behavior has changed. It is basically the only way to really keep an animal off of something when you are not there is to use, hey Christine, is to use management, which basically means you have to somehow block off the cat from getting there, because otherwise there is no way to teach the cat while you are not there unless you have a remote system that is very well timed to either distribute the reinforcement or the punishment. Then there's no real way to teach that animal to not go on to a thing. I laugh when, yeah, exactly. When the cat's away, the cat will, well, when the people are away, the cat will play. That's exactly it. Because one of the constraints of learning is they learn while you're there, but you are now part of that whole environment of that behavior of avoiding the table. So you're also going to, when you're not there, then they can do the behavior of being on the table because you're never there to actually teach them to not do it. There are some things, there's a thing called a pet tutor, which is a remote control system for training, but most likely that still won't work because you won't be able to monitor it on a regular basis. But I guess probably, you know what? I do have a kind of quasi method. I don't know if it would work, be 100%. We'd have to do some recordings to see. But basically, you could take a pet tutor, which dispenses treats. And what you do is set a time limit. Like maybe the cat goes onto the table every X time. Well, basically, you just set the thing to drop a treat like every 15 to 30 minutes. And what will happen is the cat will stay off the table, but it's because the cat's going to be obsessed with that treat distributor. But that's the way to do it. Yeah. Okay. So you could do the sticky side up onto the table. There is a little bit because that would create a punisher for that. The smells, I hate the smells thing because once again we go into every animal as an individual, and you have some animals that are like, oh, I hate that smell, and then you have other animals that are like, well, I'm fine with that. I like pepper. Give me all the pepper. So the smell thing is hit or miss, just depending on how your cat reacts to those smells. Yes, that could do it. That would deter them. So you could use that. The sticky tape, same thing. It's just an uncomfortable thing. But once again, once those are gone, that behavior will probably go away because you've taken away the antecedent to stop them from going onto the table. The cat knows when the sticky stuff is on there. The cat knows by its nose when the smell's up there. Also, the smell thing can also lead to a side effect if the animal is constantly exposed to a smell, and that cat will probably smell that smell almost everywhere in the house. It will potentially raise the basically create a stressor in that cat's life constantly, and then you end up with potential other behaviors. Because imagine smelling a smell that you hate all the time. You'd just be irritated whenever you have to go to that place if it smells like that. The other issue is with both of those is desensitization. If the cat really wants up there, it will eventually get desensitized to those punishers, the smell and the sticky tape. So those are the issues with those. So can they work? Yes, because punishment is a method of learning. But it doesn't always work because also with punishment, one of the reasons I also don't like punishment is because you kind of get into this arms race because you become desensitized. If you get scared of a loud noise, but somebody does it 10 times a day, eventually you're going to be like, eh. So that would be the other side of that kind of coin. So, but those are technically methods that could potentially work. I also would say that as soon as you take that tape up, the cat's going to realize and know. All right. Any other questions? Hello, Amanda. The obsessive compulsive cat feet have been on here. Must clean table. Yeah. I was actually thinking about that the other day, and I always love it when people tell me that their cat doesn't go on furniture or their dog doesn't go on furniture. I'm like, every 100% of the time, whenever they take a video and go into the place afterwards, that animal's everywhere that the person claims that they don't go. Which is why there's management. Management meaning you just make sure that they can't do it. Hi, buddy. You want to do crazy eyes? Crazy eyes. Good boy. What's this? Oh, that's steak fat. You want more? Let's get crazy eyes. Awesome. Hey, Grey Wind. Oh, buddy. You want more? Oh, shoot. I got to get both ready, huh? You don't want it? Grey Wind. Target. Good. Good boy. Oh, you got a harder piece, didn't you, Oscar? There. Now I'm seeing the video just a slight delay. There's that crazy eyes. Kind of the whale eyeing. Whale eye usually is can be sign of stress, but sometimes stress is good stress. In this case, for Oscar, you could see the whites of his eyes when he was receiving that treat. But if that was a scary moment, then I would say that that's stress caused by fear. But this is stress caused by, oh my God, I want that treat. I want that thing. All right. Does anybody else have any other questions? Just pop them into the chat and I'd be happy to answer them. We're getting to about the 10-minute mark, but if people put in things to talk about, then I can go a little later. Not a problem. So I am excited to go help the teachers, and there's a lot of good studies coming out about those therapy dogs in classrooms, and I'm really happy to be part of that here in our school systems and other school systems nearby to bring that opportunity for the students. And honestly, I think the teachers also just like having their dogs in their classrooms. But obviously, it's not the easiest thing in the world. We have to. Everybody that I work with, we put in a lot of time and a lot of hours working with the pups to get them to where they do good with all the students and the teachers and all the rules I put in place. All right. Got about 7 more minutes or so. So just let me know if you have any questions. Put them right on in there. We're about to kind of excited to start this third year. Our business is really picking up. We're constantly getting calls. I'm getting to the point where having to play quite a bit of scheduling Tetris to get everybody in, so that we can keep all these pups in families and just improve everybody's relationship all around. The eternal cat question. The other issue with the tape sticky side is you gotta put that tape everywhere you don't want the cat. So all the counters, all the things. But yeah, they generally just learn. You too. You have a good evening. Maybe I'll swing by KH here soon. All right. All right. Does anybody have any other questions they have for me? Otis heard the click. That's still making me laugh. This click is actually a very powerful tool. Oh, come on. It's a very powerful tool when used right. It doesn't have to be a click, but it's all about that sound. Is there a good way to stop cats from scratching the furniture? Yes, that one you can. Oh, okay. Had visitors in our building, and Otis did awesome. Greeted them, and only one little bark as the group of five came down to the hall. Did a target and immediately came beside me. Just keep exposing. Yep. So Otis is in the final, kind of the later stages of the therapy dog situation. So he actually is in the school because he needs to be desensitized, but he got a bunch of the training. We still have a little bit more to do, but really he's doing great and getting exposed and desensitized to all the different situations that can happen there. Thanks for the help. No problem. Is there a good way to stop a cat from scratching furniture? Okay. Generally, my favorite thing to do with most behaviors is actually to redirect uh, uh, to redirect them to something else. So with cats, usually what I would do is instead of spraying them or something when they're on the thing I don't want them scratching, is I try to give them alternatives. And when they do scratch it, which also you can clicker train a cat, I generally will clicker train them and or somehow signal to them that they did what I want them to do when they go to the alternate uh, thing to scratch, and then they get a reward. So then they'll start scratching that instead, because then it's not as big of an issue. The other thing to do to stop furniture is actually trim their nails. If you trim their nails on a regular basis, the scratching isn't as much of a problem. It does grow out every so often. I have a polydactyl cat who's trying to sneak to get to the food right now. Ha ha ha. This is not treats for, well, it was a little bit of treats for Kitty, but you're not getting it. I see you. So you can trim their nails, in which case I always try to positively train them to do the nail trimming, in which case they get treats and things of that nature. Rakshasa, you're just in the way tonight, aren't you? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. So, let me bring that up to make sure I'm answering questions. Okay, so uh so yes, there is a way. Usually I give them alternatives of things to scratch, like scratching posts, um, and then put treats over whenever they actually do use that instead of the the uh the furniture. I might shoo them away from the furniture just to, or try to call, but I prefer to try to call them away. So get their attention when they start scratching on the thing you don't want them to scratch on, and um, then guide them to the thing you do want them to scratch on. Or if you have to, just if it's a complacent cat, you could also pick them up, put them on the other thing, and as soon as they start scratching the other thing, you drop a treat for them as well. So that when they scratch there, the whole goal is to actually reinforce or increase the behavior of scratching on that post over the other one. Uh, so that's usually what I try to do. But I definitely also, until that happens, I would definitely suggest trimming their nails so that while they're learning to scratch on the correct post, they're not damaging the furniture that you don't want them to scratch on. All right. Any other questions? And for those wondering, the Ah, okay, all right. I've got a common one. All right, so it once again goes to that. Okay, so Tammy mentioned that Otis did a target. Target, as I said, was when an animal touches a body part to something. So I will teach dogs and cats to like boop their nose to my hand. So that draws them away from the thing I don't want them. I like that because one of the things we use it for is it draws them away from stimuli or like other dogs or the couch. Like draws them away from that, and then you can work with them to do something else. So when they're barking at the neighbor dogs, the minute they run out the back door, what I would do is actually the thing is you're going to have to stop that behavior. You're going to have to be out with them. Um, so as soon as you let them out, you have to go out with them, and then you need to train them to target to you, so that way there's a reason to come to you, and then they get a reward. And what will happen is they become desensitized to this thing behind them because there's no reason to deal with that because they can deal with you. Now the thing is if this is an already learned behavior, which it sounds like it is, i.e., they're doing it over and over again, you're going to need a very high reinforcer, and you're going to need to take baby steps in this. So you might have to go all the way to them and just slowly, like every time they like look away from the other dog for half a second, then you're going to click and reward at that exact moment just to start getting them thinking, oh, turn around this way. Oh, and then they do it more and more. And eventually they will not bark at the dog because it's more rewarding to just redirect towards you. Um, and then usually if once they get that out of their system, they become desensitized to the other dog being there, then you can, work with that. The other things that there's also a management side. I don't know what kind of fencing you have with the other neighbor's dog, but honestly, a visual barrier. The more visual barriers you can put up between you and your side and their side, the less tempted they will be to bark at that other dog. But and also don't let them do it for extended periods of time. One problem that a lot of people do is they just send the dog out and they just let it go. The longer it's out there, the more it will actually self-learn, and it's going to keep that cycle going and just keep going, and then it becomes worse and worse, and then the dog's going to bark longer, more often, longer, more often, longer, more often. So that's why I teach that target, to try to break that cycle. You need to redirect them and get them occupied with other things that other than that dog being on the other side, because otherwise that is a huge reinforcer for the dog, i.e., they like to bark at other animals that are in their territory and such. So you need to up the game. So I would also say you need very high end reinforcers. So chicken, meat, or some type of treat that they really, really love to avoid the other thing, which would be barking at those dogs. But unfortunately, to stop that, you will have to put in some time and actually go out with them more and more often to make sure that they don't keep doing that behavior self-training, self-learning. All right. Does anybody have any other questions? I'll give it about a minute, and if no other questions pop up, then we'll call it for the evening. But I know there's also a delay, so I want to make sure that I give everybody a chance to throw their questions in. I hope that answered your question, Denise and Christine. I know these are easier said than done on many of these occasions, which I'd be happy to help, obviously, if somebody needed some more. Okay. All right. Well, then, this concludes our fourth Wednesday for January. We'll be back at it again, fourth Wednesday of February. question is, when is that? When is the fourth Wednesday of February? It is the 26th. Yeah, this one kind of snuck up on me. Uh, over and put, over and out. All right. You have a great week too, Tammy. Next one will be the 26th. So if you have any questions, then I'll be putting out the a lot of videos for people who put in questions on my posts regard for behaviors that like me talking more in depth about. You all have a great rest of your day, and we will see you again. All right. Bye now.